So every big business starts small. But you'll agree with me when I say that starting a business is like jumping onto a roller coaster without a safety harness. And when you're in such a dynamic business environment, growth does not happen merely by chance. It is actually the result of several forces coming together. And when these forces are led by a woman, entrepreneurship takes wings. And it certainly is in our country, India. However, only a few truly have been able to build businesses and take them to their absolute logical scale. So the question for all of us is, what is the toolkit for scaling up successfully? To answer this question, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of inviting on stage a very special panel. First up, let's invite on stage the moderator for this discussion, Outlook Business Deputy Editor Kripa Mahalangim. And now let's quickly invite our super panelists, Sulajja Firodia Motwani, founder and CEO, Kinetic Green Energy and Power Solutions. Co-founder and director, Race Power Experts, Nidhi Gupta. Co-founder, Strategy Garage, Revathy Ashok. Co-founder, CreditMantri, Gowri Mukherjee. Co-founder, Teleradiology Solutions, Sunita Maheshwari. And with that, ladies, Kripa, over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to do this panel discussion today. It's never easy being an entrepreneur. There's so many decisions, hefty pay packets to let off, lifestyle changes, and there's so many decisions, and even tougher for a woman who has to balance family and work. But today, I have with me on stage successful women entrepreneurs who have not only taken the plunge, but have done it successfully and have built a business of great scale. And today, they're here to share the story with you. Today, I don't want to play the role of a moderator. The central theme of this panel discussion is to find the secret behind this, how you scaled up your businesses. So I'm going to ask each one of you, what is your secret of scaling up your business? Nidhi, I'm going to start with you. You started your business in 2012, and you scaled it 11, and it's scaled up to be an 800 crore business. So tell us a little bit more on how you scaled up the business and the challenges and how you managed to do this in such a short while.
Good evening, everyone. So we started in 2011. My brother, Mr. Rahul Gupta, has started this company. That time, it was a consultancy firm, but when I completed my engineering in 2012, I joined this company, and after that, we started as an EPC. EPC stands for Engineering, Procurement, and Construction. When I joined the company, for the first month, I stayed in the office itself. But from the inner side, like, I was not feeling satisfied because that 1 month, I was just finding like what solar is, how solar works, what are the policies and all. So I requested, or I had taken permission from my parents and especially from my brother also, to give me a permission to stay at site to understand core phenomena like what is solar, how execution goes on and everything. I went to Bikaner. It's a desert area in Rajasthan where our first project was taken up. So it was a startup of the company, and Rahul sir was taken the responsibility to build new businesses from the client. Thereafter, I took the responsibility to take the entire execution of the project. I still remember, I want to share one experience in my very early stage. It was my 4th day at the site, and like 20 men were standing in front of me with the hockey stick, and they were pressurizing me to stop the work. At that time, my age was 23 years, and being a girl, I felt that I am giving more logical or impactful argument than a man at that age. After that, I moved to police station. That was also my first time when I went into the police station to issue an FIR. And after that, I met a lady collector in Bikaner. Seeing her as a lady collector it gives me more spirit and confidence to build a self-confidence in me that yes, I can do it, I can face all these challenges in future itself. So this was the first, I still remember this was the first incident which brings me out, yes Nidhi, you can do it, you can take up any challenge which comes in front of you. In the, over the site only, like when was like a 3 months tenure period was going on, I started with the purchase part also, and the first purchase was the bricks, which is used for the construction of our site. And thereafter, my procurement journey started off. I returned back to my corporate office that was located in Delhi. So when I returned back, fortunately, the cash flow of the company was very good because of the commissioning of first project. And Mr. Rahul had given me an responsibility to handle finance also. Now, I am a simple engineer, and I passed engineering with the grace of God and with the grace of luck. And like now, if you are handling a company with a turnover of around 70 CR, is actually a aim in darkness. But that time also, it was the second time I felt, Nidhi, you are the one who can control the expenses and let the money go at the right place. So at that time, that was a time when I started with the purchase part of the company, the finance part of the company, and the execution. Till today, when a company turnover is 800 CR, the team of procurement and finance is same. The fundamentals are same that we have started in 2012. The only things changed is the process and the layers. So this was the journey all around. But yes, entrepreneurship for a woman is not a simpler task. When I had decided to go there to site to understand each and everything, that was not an easy a decision for me, because it was an all rural area, no girl is there, no security is there, and you have to fulfill all your things like by your own. So that was the starting of my, it's a challenging life, but now it's a very lovable journey, and I'm enjoying it. Thanks a lot.
Great. Gowri, you had a successful corporate career spanning more than a decade with Citibank and Stanchart. So how did you make the transition from being, in corporate life to becoming an entrepreneur? What were some of the learnings that you had, from your corporate career that you took to become an entrepreneur?
Hi, can you hear me? So I'm one of those people who started my career, so did my engineering and then an MBA, like most people, went to BITS and IMC, and spent about 17 years working in banks. So worked in HSBC, Citibank, and Standard Chartered. So corporate career, and and along the way, there were a couple of things that were, to me, learning experiences. So after my first stint at HSBC, which was a corporate banking management trainee stint, was when the first wave of .com was happening in the country. And, I got excited by all the noise around it, and I joined SIFI, which was India's first internet startup. And it was a heady phase. It was when SIFI listed in NASDAQ. Loved that stint and figured that I liked this cusp of business and technology. Having figured it, unfortunately, by the time I got this vision and this is what I love doing, was when the crash happened and needed a job. So, the joke used to be at that time when you didn't, you kind of worked in a startup and it didn't necessarily work out, was B2B or B2C. You went back to banking or went back to consulting. So I went back to good old basics of banking. But I joined Citibank's startup internet team and spent about 12 years at Citi. Loved that stint. It was the early phases, so the digital business at Citi meant there was a large part of digitizing payments, a large part of it around acquiring customers online. And in that phase, there weren't many people. Payments was not a hot topic the way it is right now. So ended up formulating a fair amount of regulation closely with a lot of stakeholders in the ecosystem. So I was the chairperson of the RBI committee on chip and PIN. So every time you swipe your card and curse somebody saying, why do I have to remember the PIN? It's unfortunately a bunch of us that got together and said that's safer for the consumer. Likewise for e-commerce and OTP transactions, which almost all the e-com startups hated us for it. But anyway, just be that as it may be. After that, I moved on to Standard Chartered, which is a Middle East Asia Africa bank, to set up digital marketing across all these markets. So I used to travel quite a bit. Along the way, I had 2 kids. My daughter is now 14. My son is 11. Always wanted to do a startup. It was always in this, it was a kind of space that I was in where worked with companies, had seen companies succeed, I'd seen companies that didn't succeed, but kind of liked the smell of how these people worked and the space. So to me, it was really a question of when I would do it rather than shouldn't I do it. And I've been toying with multiple ideas. So in 2014, when I connected with my co-founders, who used to be my colleagues at Citi, felt 2 things were right in a market and a consumer sense. One, there was a certain e-commerce was obviously taking off in the country. There was a consumer demand. The second, of course, was the mobile, and the mobile internet usage was picking up. So I felt if I didn't do it now, I'll never get to do it. And I really, a lot of what, Rashmi spoke about in terms of choices and, guilt and all of that, I wouldn't have traded this change from a corporate into a entrepreneurship for anything. The last 3.5 years has been a journey which has helped me actually redefine myself. And in many ways, I feel the entrepreneurship journey is one I've had to leave behind a business card where a title and a company would open doors automatically. And I think that was actually a significant difference. And it was all about people actually responding to Gowri the individual rather than Gowri coming from this institution. That was a big step. The second, of course, was the fact that, working in a large institutions used to a lot of support, administrative assistants, so here I am booking my own tickets, worrying about, is the admin in? So a lot of day-to-day changes, which are very physical and very tangible in how they eat into time. And so these were things that were quite a big change. But for me, I think the biggest and the most positive thing has been that a startup, because simply the resources are constrained, forces one to make choices which are, I think, a lot sharper and much better thought through. In terms of, the choice could be something as simple as, who do we hire? Can we afford this person? Which in a large institution, no questions asked. You have the capital, you have the access to that kind of talent, and you, of course, recruit them. So here you're worrying about, can I afford? How can I make it work? The second, of course, is the challenge around choices about a business is not scaling. You want to look at it hard and say, what should I be doing? Should I be investing more time and energy? Because the logical thing to solve a problem that one is used to is to say, if something's not working, spend more time, spend more energy, you can solve it. That's human nature. But here the contra is you have only 24 hours in a day. And actually making that choice of time and saying, with this, my time is precious. Does it make sense to invest more and more into it? Can I get somebody to do it? So those have been questions that I think have forced me to look at time and forced me to look at things that I truly stand for with a lot more integrity. I think that would be the big change.
Sulajja, you're a third-generation entrepreneur yourself, and you drove the restructuring for the traditional business, and now you have a new baby that you're very excited about, your electronic vehicles. So tell us a little bit of how you kind of drove the restructuring and were able to kind of see into the future and kind of adapt quickly and scale up a new business in such short time.
Hi, everyone. First of all, you're a wonderful audience. And even I enjoyed doing the exercises with Mickey Mehta and all of you. So thanks for the experience, Outlook.
Thank you.
Let me quickly introduce myself because I'm not from Bangalore and I see a lot of the leading ladies of Bangalore here, which you must be familiar with. My name is Sulajja Firodia Motwani and I vice chair the Kinetic group in Pune. We are an automotive group and unlike my very eminent panelists here, I'm a third generation entrepreneur. So my story is a little different, but it has its own, I guess, challenges. So our family's been into automobile business for the last 60 years. We are about a 7,000 crore group. Bajaj Tempo, which is now called Force Motors, and Kinetic, which made the Luna and the Kinetic Honda, and many other products. This is sort of the legacy which I inherited. And now I share the Kinetic arm of the group. My cousin looks after the Force Motors arm of the group, just to give you a background. Been in the industry for the last 20 years after coming back from the US. And I joined at the bottom of the ranks, and then I headed the two-wheeler business. And I've been handling pretty much, I would say, all the operations of the group. I vice chair most of the companies of the group. Now, what I want to share with all of you is something about my story which may be of interest to you. Having been a good student, I also always wanted to be part of the business. I have two sisters who never joined the family business. So it's not that because you're a family member, you get to be in the business. It was only because I wanted to be, and my father or my grandfather always gave me the platform that, if I have the interest and potential, that I should be given opportunity, that I came back from the US to join the business. So everything was wonderful. I had been a good student. I had done well in the US. I went to a good business school. I worked there. I came to Kinetic. Everything was going great. And then there was a patch in our business. She referred to it as a restructuring, where our business hit a very rough patch. And by then, I was already managing director of the two-wheeler business. So the responsibility of the restructuring, of finding a solution in this very difficult situation, was mine. And also, I had decided that my father, who's a very eminent industrialist, but also a very, he's a Padma awardee, he's a very renowned, very down-to-earth person. I didn't want him to be troubled by any of the restructuring. So I didn't want him to get, disturbed by the difficulties that the business was facing. So I decided to take the whole thing on myself. It was for the first time in my life that I had faced failure. And of course, businesses go through ups and downs. But you can't help but, attribute it to yourself when you are heading something and there is a rough patch. So it's very difficult to say that, not to say that, oh my God, what did I do wrong or something like that. But I'm happy to say that we restructured the entire group successfully. It took us almost 4 years. Unlike what is happening today, where many of the big groups are going through big difficult periods, and there are, there is debt defaults and bankruptcies being declared and people losing jobs and all of that. We didn't face any of that. We restructured the group in the most honorable way. We repaid all our debts. We reorganized our businesses. We created new opportunities from the restructuring. And the business which was in trouble, we did a joint venture. We sold our stake in it. So tough decisions were made of selling something which was close to your heart, starting some new businesses, taking tough decisions and repaying your liabilities rather than being greedy and trying to hold on. But we came out of it wonderfully with our reputation intact and with our employees' jobs intact and businesses intact. So the learning here is that you do go through a rough patch, and at that time when you find your inner strength and you kind of feel stronger that okay, I have done this, so if there's another difficult period in my life, it can be done. Subsequently, in the last 4 years, I wanted to do something more, something new. And my grandfather had always told me that if you want to find a business that will be successful, you have to look at the trends in the society. And if your business is aligned with what's happening in the society, then you have a great 50% of the job is done. So we heard the internet, the food menu story, we heard the CreditMantri story, we heard the solar story. These are all aligned to what's happening in the society. Today, society is going digital. The society is looking for convenience. The society is looking for green solutions. So your business, if it's aligned to these big trends, then you'll have been in the right place at the right time, but not by chance, but by having thought through. So I decided that I love automobiles, but the new trend in automotive technology is green technology. So just like everything else is going green, it's important that automotive, which is based on engine technology for so many years, has to change. And possibly electric or some similar technologies are the future. So I launched a new company called Kinetic Green, which is into electric vehicles, which are battery-operated vehicles, which have no emission, no noise, they don't use any fuel. And we have in the last 4 years, it's a new industry, it's a small, nascent, growing industry with great potential. We have now become India's #1 company in electric three-wheelers, like autos, rickshaws, and also #2 in buggies, golf carts, this range, and about to now launch electric scooters. And we think that there is great potential in this segment. Again, because India is a pyramid, so we are looking at the bottom of the pyramid where millions of people are using two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and such solutions. And if you give them green solutions, the impact on the pollution and our environment will be much greater than the top, which is the few people using cars. So we are focusing on such solutions. And so now I'm again in a startup phase, so to speak, and really enjoying it. So that's a little bit about my story. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Sunita, you run the country's largest teleradiology company, and you managed to scale up without any funding. So tell us your story and why you decided not to take any funding and scale it up on your own, and how did you manage to do that?
I have to admit I'm sitting on a panel of entrepreneurs, but I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I don't think I had one of those sudden urges to become on an Outlook business panel. But I'm a doctor, and my poor husband couldn't get a job when we moved back from Yale to Bangalore. So we landed up becoming entrepreneurs. And I think my learning was that, if life gives you an opportunity, then just grab it with both hands and run. And so it's where those patient, those very, what they call patient entrepreneurs over the last 15 years. So we started off by reporting for American hospitals, CT scans and X-rays and MRIs, which would come to Whitefield, to our Bangalore office. And we expanded from that into now about 20 countries around the world. Thank you. And I think the way, and I'll get to why we didn't take funding. So all the VCs and P guys are my best friends because I don't take their money, but we thought about it. I mean, every entrepreneur will think about money. But I think for us, what was a driving force was, how can we do this? How can we do it well? And we kept focusing on that. And in fact, we focused on it for 14 years. And I had friends who run PR firms who said, how come you're never out there talking about what you're doing? So I said, I'm really sorry, we've just been busy doing it. We haven't had the time, we haven't really talked about it. Of course, some of that has changed recently. But I think, one of the mantras we used as we scaled, and this was a very conscious decision about 4 or 5 years ago. When you're private limited and you build up, we had a very simple business philosophy. If we had money, we would spend it. If we didn't have money, we didn't spend it. So when we had money, we bought a little piece of land in Whitefield. When we had a little bit more money, we built ourselves an office. So we kind of went with this revenue model one step at a time. And I think this simple philosophy, which sounds like common sense, so for every rupee we make, we only spend 70 paisa. So we have an EBITDA of 30%, and that's been something we've followed over the years. Now, my father was a management consultant, and we have no business degree. I have no MBA, nothing. We're both 2 doctors running this thing. And he gave me a very simple piece of advice. He said, do not treat this company like it is yours. That company is like another person. You take your salary. You want your company does well, take dividends. But reinvest in that company. So I have my dad's picture up in our office, and that's what we did. As we had profits, we built out 1 clinic in Whitefield, because we realized that healthcare in India is something that everyone needs. Everyone runs to the hospitals. But, you really could go to your doctor at a primary care clinic and see them and not have to sit in in a hospital for 8 hours. So we built 1 clinic called RxDX in Whitefield. We ran that 1 clinic for 10 years. So you may think I'm really boring as an entrepreneur, but we just ran that 1 clinic, and we had a lot of learnings. What works, what doesn't work, when do patients get annoyed, who are good doctors, who are not good doctors, how do you compensate doctors, how do you make a primary care clinic viable? Most primary care chains in India who have been funded have actually, most of the VCs have lost their money, because you charge 350 rupees, out of that the clinic gets 40 rupees. I mean, you're not talking big margins here. So we ran 1 clinic for 10 years, and 3 years ago we decided to scale. So we just opened our 5th clinic and now our 6th clinic in the last 2 years from profits of that first clinic. Then we took the profits of both these and invested in a tech company. And one of my other learnings as an entrepreneur was, if you believe in your idea, be willing to invest in it yourself. So all my friends said, why aren't you using OPM? You all know OPM? Other people's money. They're like, why are you sitting here? So I said, no, we believe in OOM, our own money. So I think my learning as an entrepreneur was, if you believe in your idea, then be willing to put behind it. Why do you want the VC to put behind it every time? So when we believe that, technology for telemedicine, we were using American tech. And we were paying a company in South Carolina for technology, and we said, hey, we're going to build it in-house. So we have no idea about these software engineers. They work 5 days a week, we work 7 days a week. We had all these cultural issues, but we built out a tech company. We now have 60 engineers, and as we saw the AI, the artificial intelligence enter, and as you said, you've got to keep, your eyes and ears to the ground. So we now have an AI lab that we've invested in. So yes, maybe someday we'll take PE funding. But I think we didn't take it for many reasons. I personally believe there's some fields, maybe healthcare for sure, where you don't want it very much driven by money. And as an entrepreneur, while money is important, money is not the only thing. And I truly believe if you do something well, and you focus on doing it well, money follows you. So apart from not wanting a VC sitting on my head, I think just following these very simple, basic lessons of reinvesting in one's own businesses, living life, staying simple, staying honest. It sounds like common sense, but not getting carried away with, I live the same lifestyle, maybe a little better today, but not letting one's values change as one has money in one's life. And really keeping to those simple principles, it is possible to scale. I will tell you, we were stuck at a certain revenue about 5 years ago. We hadn't moved in 3 years. We were just the same. And then we decided, okay, we need to scale. We want to scale, let's put it this way. We do want to scale. So we went out and got ourselves a global sales head and a CFO. And I was the CFO for 10 years, and I've never done finance. So there are times in the organizational growth that you need different things, and then you go out and find them. But I think just staying true to oneself and working at having a service that people love and want to use, you can't fail.
Surely you can't fail with that. Revathy, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You help them scale their business. So what is the secret behind scaling a business, and what do you tell your entrepreneurs?
So my life trajectory has been a little different. I did my IIM from management from IIM Bangalore, and then worked in Sony as my first early job, manufacturing, only women on the shop floor, and it was a strange experience, and that was very long ago. Most of you in the room wouldn't have been born at that point. And then I worked for a company called Dotsul, which is in general contracting. I spent some time in Iraq. I worked in very difficult circumstances, very male-dominated, again, only women. And, but those were not the days where diversity was a point to be discussed. I don't think that was even known in the dictionary. So you took gender for granted. You didn't really wear gender on your sleeve. So worked along in very male-dominated society companies, because there was no technology company at that time. And then I joined a company called AMP. I was the first employee. That was a multinational. I helped them set up in India. So I was kind of an entrepreneur. I became the director of the company at the age of 31, and was the CFO of that company, director on the board. Didn't know anything, what it means to be a director, what it means to, what are the liabilities you carry on your head being a director. But then just plowed along and did this. It was a manufacturing company. We did some really interesting things. I was there with them for 8 years. We did a joint venture for supply to Mercedes-Benz. We did a joint venture for supply to Samsung. So there were very interesting moments in those days, again, pre-IT, and going and negotiating with Mercedes-Benz, because every joint venture that you put up in India for supply of parts to Mercedes-Benz requires Mercedes-Benz approval. So really negotiating with the Mercedes-Benz team and convincing them that you could manufacture in India and really support them in Bremen, where their factory was, just in time. So there was a lot of learning out of all of that negotiation. Similarly with Samsung, convincing them that you could supply to Korea and just in time, and ensure that you could, from India, in spite of all the logistics problems, you could in fact rely on a partner like this. And then came the internet boom. I was perfectly happy in my company and doing all these wonderful things. I was on the board, and then, somebody headhunted me out and said, there is this wonderful company called Microland. Why don't you join us? The chairman of the company actually headhunted me out. I said no several times, and then he buttonholed me one day and said, and that time they had raised money in those days, very big numbers, valuation of $100 million. News Corp had invested. Several others, JP Morgan had invested, ICICI Venture had invested. And those were really early days. That was 2000. And finally, I think I gave in to that persistence of over 6 months and took that plunge and joined in March. And I think in April, and I think somewhere around the time is when the internet crashed. So from a situation when when I was told that I would be the group CFO taking 5 companies public, when I walked in, I suddenly found that the company had customers that had all vanished. So they had all customers, great customers in the US, but none of those customers existed. So from a situation where I thought I was going to take 4 or 5 companies public, I was faced with this massive challenge of restructuring the entire group, and I had investors sitting on my head. I had ICICI coming and cursing me. I had JP Morgan at my throat. I had ILFS at my throat. Every single entity, News Corp at my throat. I mean, this is not something that I really bargained for. I'd given up a cushy life thinking I would create something big and meaningful, and then suddenly I had this whole situation to deal with. That was really tough. Again, as Gayatri said, suddenly you had nothing to fall back on. The company did not have a reputation at that point because people respect you only when you have money. You had nothing in the bank because all that money was sort of almost blown up. And News Corp had said that whatever they had invested will be completely frozen, and we could not invest anything into new businesses. So everything was at standstill. Very complex negotiations. One of the companies, which was in telecom, I sold it off to a US company, and we exited very gracefully. It's a different matter that about 8 months after we sold the company which bought got bankrupt. So that's a different matter. Those were the difficult times. And then I sold another of the group, sold this back, India.com. I don't know, many of you would not have heard of it, but India.com, I negotiated a stake sale back to News Corp. And there was another company called Planet Asia where I negotiated a merger with another company. And we got back to the core company, Microlan, which was in infrastructure services, and restructured that and said, we cannot have multiple businesses. And that taught me an enormous lesson in entrepreneurship. That if you think as a startup, entrepreneurs are buzzing with ideas, and that's what makes them entrepreneurs. They're buzzing with ideas, and they think they can do a lot of things, and lots of new ideas, and everything looks so exciting, and you almost feel there is a feeling of FOMO, that I'm just going to miss out if I don't invest in that. And so you start this company, and you start another company, and a third company. But what this taught me was I was not the creator and the architect of all these companies, but I had this terrible job of facing creditors, of facing employees to whom no salaries could be paid. Very, very difficult times. And people, I would get threatening calls at home, threatening calls at night, all kinds of things. But I think I had the support of the chairman, and we were able to really restructure. And that company today, you pay a big price because this company was valued higher than Infosys at that point. What Infosys did was it stuck to its knitting. It just did plain services, stayed there on that, built their business, built their bank balance. Over a period of time, they had the ability to invest in other things. But Microlan was the young, entrepreneurial, very innovative company, great businesses, but way ahead of its time. So the lessons it taught me was A, focus, B, you could be ahead of the time. So the timing at which you bring in new technology is so critical. So you need to have that staying power. You may be doing something much too early and the market is not ready for you. So these were some very key learnings, and I think I was deeply recognized for the restructuring that I did, and that was very much appreciated by all the investors. And during that process, I used to get a call every other day during those 4 years that I was there. you're working in this company, why don't you join us? And I said, my restructuring job is not complete. I don't want to leave a sinking ship halfway. So I really need to complete that restructuring before I move on. And as soon as I finished the last bit of restructuring, I just got out of the blue, got a headhunter to call and say, there is this fantastic opportunity of being the CFO of a NASDAQ-listed company. And there wasn't a woman CFO ever in a NASDAQ-listed company based out of the US. It was a tough decision, but it meant that I had to shuttle between Detroit and Mumbai, and my base was Bangalore, and family was in Bangalore. But the people were very supportive, and I took the plunge. And thereafter, that was a very, very interesting experience of dealing with global investors and building scale and value. And thereafter, got again headhunted out by ICICI, who had been the investor in Microland, and said, we are starting a joint venture and we want you to be part of it. So I was the managing director of Tishman Speyer, which is where it gave me the private equity investing expertise. And during that period, I got very excited by startups. That was about 12 years ago. There were very few startups, but me, group of many others, again, I happened to be the only woman, started investing in a lot of companies. I've got 15 companies in my portfolio. One of them hopefully will be a unicorn, will get shortly listed in NASDAQ, so NASDAQ or the US. So it's been a tough journey, but, and about a couple of years ago, I set up this company called Strategy Garage. Basically, I had seen so many startups and my own personal experiences as an entrepreneur. I felt that there were many, many learnings that I wanted to share with others. There were many things that people do wrong because they don't realize there is a different way to do this. And that is my contribution back. Obviously, we have to employ people, so it cannot be free, but really this is not a money-making venture to me. This is my giving back to society for all that it has done to me and given me the position that I am in today.
So I'm going to ask each one of you, what was the most difficult personal dilemma you faced while you started on this journey on entrepreneurship, and how did you overcome that?
Time. I think the toughest is time and where one spends time. Today, for instance, is my cousin's wedding is tomorrow or day after. And I'm supposed to be in Chennai. And I'd given my word to Kripa, so I had to stick to it, and I'm being cursed at home, right, so, for missing. So I think it's a constant, I think it is 24 hours, and I think, and I think that has been the dilemma. It cuts in many ways, professionally, personally, children growing up. I think all of us in the room face it. Being sharp and having that clarity of this is important, this is not important, not necessarily algorithmic or logical, but that I would think is the biggest dilemma I face.
Nidhi, what was your biggest personal dilemma?
Basically, me and my brother, we are the first generation entrepreneurship in our family. And what I mean with the word of entrepreneurship is failure more and success less. So if you're doing something, if you are thinking you are thinking something innovative, something goes wrong, something goes out of track. And I think being a first generation entrepreneurship, we are bound to make mistakes. Right. And since we are bound to make mistakes, we also, we have to admit our mistakes and we have to take the correct path. There was a time in the company when there was a heavy financial crunch, and it was a very heavy time for both of us. The year was 2015, where at some moment, it was a time when we had decided to sell out our company. But in the inner strength, there was something like, no, we cannot sell our company that we had stand it so long, and we need to work out the solution. We both had, we worked out the solution. We met our clients, we met our vendors, we work out the path that what can be done, how best it can be done, and that is how we came out from the situation. With that experience, what I had learned is if you are doing a business, intent has to be there. Without intent, you cannot do anything. And so it's like if you have some accountability in your business, you will do it. You will succeed in your life if you have the intent. So that is the part.
Right. So what was your biggest personal dilemma and how did you overcome that?
Little generic but true. See, I feel that, we all are here, all of you, because you want to do something, you want to have some kind of a professional side, you are interested in, developing that part of your personality. So I feel that when I was in the US, I was working for a corporation, then I came back to India, started working, becoming an entrepreneur, then I had my child. So, this whole journey of being a working woman employee, a working woman entrepreneur, working mother entrepreneur. And what I feel are the learnings along the way. It's quite easy to be a working woman. It's quite fun because, we are all, we all have the same time in the day, right? So it's just a matter of prioritizing a little bit here, a little bit there. Working for a company is much easier, 100% than working for yourself. People definitely glorify entrepreneurship as if it's something that you become your own boss. But the truth is that if you're an entrepreneur, then the buck stops at you. So in fact, you're solving everybody's problems, not only your own problems. So when I was an employee, I could go home and by and large switch off. I could, of course, there could be some times when there is whatever, deadlines or some projects. But you can by and large go and have weekends, and life is more balanced, I feel. But when you're an entrepreneur, certainly, because the buck stops at you, because the responsibility is with you to take the company ahead, it's your money. If it fails, your personal self-image is attached to that project. You're definitely much more involved in it, even emotionally, psychologically. So yes, I think that being an entrepreneur, you end up giving a lot more of yourself to your profession, at least, psychologically, physically, financially, in every way. And then working mother is another dimension altogether, because then the guilt creeps in. So when I had my son, I really wanted to be, with him, but after 4 days, I was working already. So I decided that I don't want to be a part-time mom and I don't want to be a part-time entrepreneur. I want to be full-time both. So I want to be a full-time mom and I want to be a full-time entrepreneur. So that's when you have to find the inner strength. That's what my experience has been, that you have to say that, okay, this is what I want. So I'm going to prioritize these two things. These are most important to me. For me, my work, my child, and maybe fitness. So everything else takes a backseat. Whether it's socializing, whether it's shopping, whatever, so many other things one may want to do with the time, then you have to prioritize it. So I think the personal dilemma is making those choices, prioritizing. And I feel what makes entrepreneurs special is that you have that inner drive to do all this. If someone told you, like she said that, I wanted to be somewhere else, but I'm here today. If someone told you to do it, you won't do it. It's only because you want to do it. You want to spend those 12 hours at work. You want to, do whatever you are doing with your time, that you are doing it. And that's what makes entrepreneurs special, that, it's the self-motivation, the initiative to keep going, facing the difficulties and making those hard choices at all times, to give a lot of yourself to that choice. So I think there are many dilemmas, but if you genuinely want to be a successful entrepreneur, like so many ladies on this panel and all of you are, the drive has to come from within you. And if it's your own choice, you will happily enjoy it. If it is not your own choice, then you will give up along the way. There are many reasons, in-laws, children, whatever, XYZ, ABC. But if you want to do it, then you'll find the motivation to do it, and you'll enjoy it also, and the guilt will be lessened.
Sunita, how did you balance your personal dilemma, the difficult choices that you always had to make?
Well, I was in a little unique situation because I'm a doctor. So I really struggled with this. You know, entrepreneurship, I love the word, by the way. I never liked the word business. So my in-laws were very traditional Konkanis, and for them, business was a very, very bad word. So you imagine two doctors who are setting up a company. They're like, why do you have to call it a company? Don't call it a company. So we're like, Amma, Nandan Nillikani also is Konkani, and he set up Infosys. So we had to have these conversations, because when you're a professional family and you're suddenly in this sphere of kind of business. So for me, that was the biggest challenge. At work, nobody knew. I ran a department of pediatric cardiology at a large hospital, and I had this whole life at night and on weekends. And I don't think my patients, some of them are here today, but none of them knew this other side that was going on. So really balancing both those hats. I think when I finally embraced entrepreneurship, when I was able to say, you know, being an entrepreneur doesn't mean I'm a bad doctor. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I want to scale high quality, good medical interventions in this country. And when I was able to embrace my entrepreneurial hat, I think I became more successful at it. So I think for me, my balance really has been that vacations do not exist. So you need to have a new lexicon, which is workation. So, so I embraced vacations.
So we have a lot of emerging entrepreneurs who have taken the first step, you know, into entrepreneurship. So what is your one piece of advice for them?
Enjoy it. There are too many ups, there are too many downs. So you just got to have a sense of humor. And you know, I keep, whenever times are bad, I'll tell my husband, hey, one day we'll write about this in our memoirs. So, you know, as Dr. Mickey this morning talked about positive, he talked about optimism. So I think really staying optimistic. And if you have that one person, you know, you don't need a whole team and a whole board. You need that one person you can bounce it off, who will let you stay positive and optimistic. And then that's it, you keep going.
What is your one piece of it?
Well, I would say that my piece of advice would be don't give up. Believe in yourself. Of course, realign. If something is not working, change your methods. You know, reorganize yourself. Don't stick to something, you know, no escalating commitment, but don't give up. There are many reasons why you may be tempted to give up, but it's really worth the effort and the drive. I feel beautiful that I'm doing something which has a larger purpose. I feel beautiful, good that I'm growing every day. I'm meeting so many interesting people. Today I've learned so many interesting things from the ladies on the panel, meeting all of you. You're always growing, you know, and you have a much wider horizon rather than, you know, a small, narrow focus to your life. So it's really worth it, you know, to have a bigger purpose, to give back to the society, to learn, to meet people, to make money. I like that I'm successful. It's a great feeling. So don't give up along the way, despite the difficulties. Enjoy the ride, but don't give up.
Nidhi, what's your advice?
So I told earlier also, if you are planning to start something of your own, so the first and foremost thing is the intent. And the second thing is the self-confidence and the motivation. It has to be come up inside from you. Like it's not like if I am asking you, please start your own business, or it's the idea, or this is the, you know, this much investment is there. You cannot do anything. Once, if that thing comes from you, like within from you, that yes, I can do it, I can accept the challenge. And yes, the last and the foremost thing is, you have to come out from your comfort life zone. You have to take the risk. You have to be ready to accept any challenge while doing all these things. So my only advice, this all is my advice to the ladies.
Gowri, what is your advice?
So, looking at all my life experiences with various entrepreneurs and the mistakes that we have made, I think stay focused on your core business. Don't get distracted because it's very easy to get distracted with many things. But you have to be persistent because entrepreneurship, you have to look at it like a marathon. It's not a sprint. There may be an odd company which may be doing a sprint, but don't model yourself on being a sprinter, but really look at it as a marathon. It's a 10, 12-year journey, 15-year journey, and that's when really the fruits of your labor come. If you really look at some of the stories of Infosys, there was a time in their life prior to 2000, they didn't have money to pay salaries. They were on the verge of shutdown. And this is not folklore, I've heard this from Nandan himself, that at a point in time, all the founders got together and said, should we just move on? And Mr. Narayan Murthy at that point said, just give me some more time and we'll make this happen. And Y2K happened. You need that one inflection point at which, things start changing. So I think you need persistence, you need self-belief. If you believe what you're doing is right, if you believe that you're solving a customer problem, really you have to be solving some big problem and there should be a huge market. I mean, these are all, standard things that we all hear in business schools. But really, this is common sense. If you're not solving a problem, real life problem, then I think, staying in that business is questionable. So doing that and having a high degree of integrity in what you do. If you take outside funds, remember, you're literally like a custodian of funds which has been given to you in trust, and you owe it to the other party who has believed in you to make sure that there is a good return. And therefore, having that, giving the investor the faith that their money is in safe hands is so critical. And today you're seeing the fall in values. Every day you open the newspapers, you see so many fallen angels, because at the end of the day, your reputation is so critical. And please don't forget that. I think that's very, very important. And don't chase valuations, because valuations will follow. Focus on doing a great job. Focus on driving customer value. Focus on solving a real-life problem. And the valuation will chase you, and the investors and VCs will chase you. And I think that's really my message to all of you.
Mine, levity and sense of humor. This too shall pass. I think that is really something that is what I would say for most things. That's what works for me.
On that wonderful note, I'd like to thank all of you for patiently listening to this panel discussion. I'd like to thank my panelists for sharing their stories and their journey, and I hope it inspires all of you to pursue your passion as well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And thank you so much, Kripa. And ladies, for sharing all those very thought-provoking stories, we'd like to present a token of our gratitude to all of you, an Outlook hamper courtesy Indie OSA. Kripa, I'd request you to kindly present that to each one of our special panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for all the powerful women on stage who've shared a wealth of information with us this evening. Let's hear it once again for our power panel this evening. Thank you very much. And Kripa, thank you for facilitating that wonderful discussion. Thank you.